All right, just leaving CrossFit here. It's Monday morning. Gonna be doing a little bit more office driving this week. One sec, just backing out of this spot. It's kind of hard to see. Yeah, there's a little bit more travel this week at the office, which is nice. There's a couple people, at least one person that I know I want to see. Sorry, that got very loud. Sorry, I'm completely out of breath and all my windows fogged up, so I couldn't see anything. Yeah, so just finished CrossFit, office commute, coming after this. I'm going home first. So I'm gonna make 3 videos today because I was on call all last week, which was hell. Not complaining about on call because it's part of my job. Like I know I have to do it. Just like it's so draining, and not every time. This time in particular is very draining, just because there was something I had to work on. That just the nature of it. It's like Murphy's Law, right? So I had to be monitoring a dashboard for a particular issue that would periodically show up, and the shift is from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So to be up early, make sure that I'm ready to go. And this is how it worked every single time. I'd be looking at the dashboard, everything's good. When I'm actively monitoring it, like no issue. And then something else would come up on call where I'd have like a partner team asking a question or something. And then I'd like look back, and it was almost as if the last time I looked at it was like perfect. And then literally the instant that I looked away from that point, things just started going bad. So every time I was like, no. So it just made it like it felt like there was no time to rest. So pretty draining. No time to go to the gym because CrossFit class that I go to is at 6. I know there's an evening one, but I don't know what time it's at. But by the end of the workday from doing on-call, I'm exhausted. So yeah, last week was a bit of a blur for that. But this week there's at least one individual from our team that's coming in from, I guess he was in late last week, but he's flying in from California. So I think he's here like last Wednesday to this Wednesday. So I'll be trying to spend some time with him. Really smart engineer, really good to work with. So I'm kind of excited for that. What else? So that's probably all that's work related that I can think of, to be honest. Sorry, this is not telling me to turn here, and it's supposed to. That's why I was very confused. I'm like, wait a second, this is my turn. I'm all over the map because I'm so exhausted. But the work stuff, probably that's it. So I want to talk a little bit about the course launch. So Ryan Murphy and I have finished our Nailing the Behavioral Interview in Big Tech course, which is pretty exciting for us. It's our first course together, and we have more coming. So excited to be working with you on that, Ryan. We were talking with Nick, I want to say this morning for me, I don't know, probably in the afternoon or evening for Ryan and Nick, because they're both in the UK. So kind of woke up to some of the conversation they were having about timing and all that. But I've been in CrossFit class, so I haven't seen if it's technically launched, but I think we're in a position where we're not really waiting on anything else except for Nick to kind of press the metaphoric button to make it go live. Maybe it is a literal button that he presses that does it, but which will be just super cool. I'm very excited to have worked with Ryan on this. I'm excited that we get to share this kind of content in a course form, because it's stuff that we're both passionate about helping people with. And I know I've talked about this before for myself, like my YouTube channel, a lot of the content I put out is about C#. I don't think that that's my where I offer the most value, to be honest. So happy to kind of have a bit more of a lens on some of this other stuff. This guy's going pretty fast. Don't know if I want to turn into that. Okay, we'll go right after him. So yeah, it's kind of just the beginning of that. I'm not gonna, on my channel and stuff, I'm not gonna stop making C# content. I just want to make sure that I can have an opportunity to layer in more stuff, because who knows, over time, maybe my channel will shift more towards just like general software engineering. That's what I'd like it to be. I know that it's heavy on C# right now because that's what people are coming for. I technically could have split it into 2 channels. In hindsight, like, this is kind of funny, like, from content creation, especially on YouTube, like, YouTube does, I find you do a lot better when your niche is very apparent. So, like, I put up my general software engineering videos, my C# videos, my interview podcast videos. The problem with that on YouTube is that if you have an audience that only cares about C#, when they go to like start feeding your video to other people, they'll start with your core audience, like your subscribers, right? They'll take a subset of them and see who's interested. But if you have people that are only following you for, say, C# content, and then you put out a podcast, guess what? If that podcast isn't about C#, they don't want to watch it. So what does YouTube do? Like, it's a score against you, right? So they're like, oh, I guess this video isn't that great. Like, let's try another smaller audience and see. And they don't end up like blowing it up because your core audience is almost working against you. So it's a bit of a trap, and I don't have, obviously I haven't split my channel to prove it, but it's a little bit of a trap because you would think, oh, if I just have more content to put on my channel, surely it will help. And I think the answer is yes. In the very beginning it does, because you don't even have an audience forming yet. My channel's only 7,000 subscribers, so it's not huge or anything, but I think it's already enough of an audience that if I put out like a general software engineering video, it doesn't do as well. And I think that stuff is more valuable. So it's just kind of interesting, but yeah, so who knows, long term, maybe I'll split it. I'm kind of nervous about that because, like, I already have all this content on my channel now. It just seems like such a headache to have to worry about that. So we'll see. But this week in particular for content, I'm going to have at least one video that is not C# related. I'll probably have a couple of ideas. I'll probably do another one that's not C# related, but I might wait to release that next week. Maybe get back in the groove of doing like 2 C# tutorials and a like general software engineering video. That seemed to be a good sweet spot because for a little while I was doing just like all C# tutorials, and it kind of burns me out a little bit. So we'll see. But yeah, the course launch is going to be exciting. We've already we've signed for more courses with Dome Train, so we have a pretty good runway of material to go make. But it means almost like no break. So we're meeting this week to start putting together the next course, which is good. Like, I like to be busy. I like making sure I have things to work towards, and it was really good working with Ryan. So I think that we'll do an even better job on the next one, just because we've worked together, and it's like it's a learning curve for both of us, right? Like, Ryan hadn't done a bunch of this stuff before, which is totally fine. So learning curve for him. And then this was the first style of course like this that I made, so learning curve for me too. But if we go into the next one, I can guarantee it's going to feel easier. Guaranteed. Even if the topic itself was more difficult to articulate, it'll just feel easier because we've been through it. And we know how we work now. We've done one of these together, right? So it's nice. Like, I was telling Ryan when we were chatting about it, it's nice to like kind of always have someone. The fact that we're in different time zones, that we have someone, from my perspective, it's like there's always someone on the other side that's kind of like, let's keep the ball rolling. So it's not like I lost interest in making the course as we go through it, but like, you know, there's times where I'm feeling burnt out from stuff, or I'm just tired from whatever is going on, and it's like, oh yeah, like I can see messages from Ryan. I gotta make sure I'm touching base with him and just keeping things moving. And then I've heard it called like activation energy, right? Like, sometimes it takes a little bit more energy to get going on something, but once you're going, it's easy. It's just this energy to get activated and start, kind of like a coefficient of friction or something, right? Like just a little bit more energy to get started, but once you're going, good to go. So I felt like I always had, like it required lower activation energy the entire time, which is very nice. So yeah, we'll meet this week to talk about structure and all that. I do have a vacation in the end of August. Wow, we're past August. At the end of October, so I'm going to be going to Hawaii. So I need to account for that. We should be okay. I'm not concerned. It just needs to. I need to front load it a little bit so that I don't like procrastinate and I'm like, oh, I have all this time, and then I have a vacation coming up and then I stress out. So I should be okay. But I figured, by the way, like, yeah, I'm rambling a little bit and touching on a lot of stuff, but I'm going to be making 2 more videos today. So this right now is my drive from the gym to home. So I figured I'd just touch on a few more like kind of personal things, what's going on, and then the subsequent videos. If you're already at this part and you're like, dude, what the hell are you talking about? Like, you could skip ahead to the next one. I'll probably have some more like software engineering stuff, but I figured I'd just do a little personal update because I didn't get to make any videos last week. And on that note, right, like even my YouTube videos, I didn't put out any new content. Sorry, that doesn't sound right. I didn't record any new content for YouTube. I had 2 podcasts to go out, so I did that. But I don't like being in a spot where I take my foot off the gas, so to speak. But like I can be very thankful that the way that I approach content creation and getting work done is that it allows me to, if that makes sense. So for example, because I've been doing this in my blog posts for months now, and the idea is like, yes, unfortunately I have not been writing new blog posts. Like that sucks, I don't like that. But I had to get some time back in order to build Brand Ghost, to make more courses and stuff. Like something has to give, I only have so much time. So I cut out blog posts, but because I had written so many already, I can still share them on social media, right? With YouTube, it was like, okay, it sucks that last week I had on call and I was kind of burnt out from it, was wrapping up the course, couldn't record new content, but I already had a head start. I had multiple podcasts ready to go. So I put out 2 last week, right? Just to try and like keep the content coming. And like this week I have 1 that's ready and I have 2 more that are being edited like at this moment. So it's just like by staying ahead, by putting in the extra effort, I can take my foot off the gas if I need to. But once I dip into that, then I have to try and recover a little bit, right? Because, for example, if I use up all of my podcasts that are pending, if something else comes up, I don't have a bit of buffer now. So I just have to be aware of that. Not a big deal. So yeah, and even this weekend, I like took it a little bit easier just because I wanted to not burn out, right? Like just finish up a course, finish on call. I'm like, okay, I got 1 YouTube video done, got it edited. I'm actually pretty happy with it. I like it. I think that's a good sign when I like the videos that I'm creating. That does not always translate, and in fact, I don't think there's any correlation with how other people receive it. But I enjoyed making the video. I watched it back. I enjoyed watching it. So that's a kind of feel-good thing for me. Now, is that going to translate into it gets more views, it gets more watch time? Like, I don't know. But I'm just going to keep making content, right? So obviously I want to make sure that I'm getting the right audience and everything, appealing to the audience. But at the end of the day, like, I don't want to be making content that I don't enjoy making, because I might as well go do something else that I like, right? So, yeah, didn't get much done on the weekend in terms of that, but we did spend more time like swarming on some stuff in Brand Ghost, which is super cool. I've been really enjoying the, like, the community. It's super cool. I've been really enjoying the, like, the community. It's super cool. I've been really enjoying the, like, the community. It's super cool. I've been really enjoying the, like, the community. It's super cool. I've been really enjoying the, like, the community. It's super cool. I've been really enjoying the, like, the community. It's super cool. I've been really enjoying the, like, the community. It's super cool. I've been really enjoying the, like, the community. It's super cool. I've been really enjoying the, like, the community. It's super cool. I've been really enjoying the, like, the community. It's super cool. I've been really enjoying the, like, the community. It's super cool. I've been really enjoying the, like, the community. It's super cool. I've been really enjoying the, like, the community. It's super cool. I've been really enjoying the, like, the community. It's super cool. I've been really enjoying the, like, the community like the sessions that we're doing. Again, for those of you that don't know, the engineers that I've been working with, we basically just work asynchronously after hours. So, you know, when either before work or after work for me, I'll try to get some coding and stuff done, and then asynchronously we'll just, like, I work on the back end, so like primarily on the back end, and the others primarily on the front end. So we just sync up about what things we need for APIs or what has to change, and then when we get time after hours, we make it work. But on the weekends, this past weekend and the weekend before, at least, been just doing calls, and there's been, even on the calls, we've been doing, like, if there's 3 of us, 2 people are working together and the other person's just off kind of doing whatever. And it's really nice just to be able to kind of be on the call together and talk about the stuff we're doing, because otherwise it's like, I don't know, it's like, it's kind of like a machine, which is fine. I like getting the work done, but it's just nice to be able to interact with people. The live problem solving, like we've all worked together before, and we work really well together. So if you haven't had this before with people that you've worked closely with, I would say there's classes of problems that we happen to all be very good at individually. And it's really interesting when you come across one of these problems, you might be totally stuck on it, but you can, like, literally say a sentence to the other person and they give you 2 ideas off the top of their head, and they're like 2 things you've never thought of, and it just so happens that they happen to be good in that space, and they get you unblocked right away. So I know with these other guys, I have that a lot. Like, what was one example? I was talking about uploading URLs somewhere, and I was complaining. I'm like, oh man, like, they have to be validated, and like all this other stuff, like there's requirements around it. And the way that I was testing, I was just picking a random URL from the internet, and one of the other guys on the team was like, before you go building all this stuff around it, he's like, why don't you, like, actually try it out the way that it's going to look? And that's files coming from our Azure blob storage. And I was like, man, like, good, like, I didn't even think about it. Like, I might have just went down a rabbit hole for hours trying to build something complicated, and I wasn't even, like, I just wasn't thinking about it the same way. And I think there's a lot of power in just having quick conversations like that you wouldn't be thinking of. Sorry, I got to turn into this traffic here. So there's a bunch of stuff like that happens, and it makes debugging easier. And I'd say, like, we get good momentum too. So I remember at least one of the nights, it was like, you know, getting ready to kind of pack it in or whatever, and you know, kind of hit one more roadblock, and one of us on the call was like, well, we've come this far already. It's like 1 a.m. for the other guys. So we've come this far already, we might as well just, like, get it done. And it's funny, like, it just reminds me of when we were, I like to think I'm still pretty young, but when we were younger and just working through problems, and, like, literally we'd stay up all night working together to get some stuff done. So just reminds me of that. It's funny though that when you do that, at least for us now, it's kind of like I don't drink alcohol much anymore, but when I was younger, like, especially in university and stuff, or, you know, late in high school days, it was like you could go out and party, and then the next day be totally fine, like nothing happened. And sorry, I'm watching these cars almost hit each other. And now it's like, if I were to go out and party, like, I would be destroyed the next day, like maybe not even get out of bed for the whole weekend. And it was kind of funny, like, staying up to work like this. It's like, it's pretty rough the night of, but the next day it was like, oh man, like, I'm exhausted the whole day. And we're not that much older, like, I don't know, hasn't even been like maybe like less than 10 years on average, I guess, for the time we worked together. And it makes a big difference. So you got to be careful. You know, you can't be doing that every night. But it was fun, right? Like, I think that's the other thing that I want to mention is, like, there is no strict timeline. It's like no one forced us to do this. It was fun to be able to work together and solve problems. And I don't know. I feel bad for, like, people that don't get that opportunity to find either colleagues or friends and stuff they like to build things with, because it's like, it's a lot of fun. And you can make really cool stuff and have it not feel like work, right? Like, there's a difference between working on, like, a challenging problem, let's say, and if you have a good challenging problem, it's work, but it's like, there's like satisfaction that comes out of it, accomplishment that comes out of it, some type of enjoyment. Maybe in the moment when it's a challenging problem, you don't enjoy it because it's hard, but then when you make progress on it, that's where the enjoyment comes. And I would say, like, finding people to work with that you really enjoy working with, it can be very similar. Because I've certainly worked on boring problems. I've worked on challenging problems. Sorry, I'm yawning and trying to hold it in. And if you're not surrounded by people that you like working with, or that you work with effectively, then yeah, those end up feeling boring and challenging and you don't like doing them. But when you are with the right people, it can make a world of difference. So I'm personally very thankful. And it's really cool to be able to kind of just work together on these hard problems. I think, was it this weekend? I'm trying to think if it was this weekend. It must have been. My mind is a little messed up from timing, just from the on-call shift. But I think this past weekend, yeah, it was this weekend, sorry. I was trying to build something that would essentially do background processing, kind of like a service that we would run that if we messed anything up, it could, like, go almost like a garbage collector, let's call it, right? So, like, some type of sweeper that would run and say, hey, like, this state isn't the right state, like, we should clean it up, for lack of better details, I guess. And so I wrote this thing and it seemed to work, and I was pretty proud of it. It's a little bit more complicated than I wanted it to be, but I was, like, running it locally, and I'm going, okay, it works. I say running it locally, but, like, on production data, and I'm like, it's working, so cool. And then it's kind of funny because, going back to what I was saying about, like, swarming this stuff with the other guys and we're working on these problems together, I was very motivated and I was solving hard problems, but I don't think that I solved them, at least the context I had to focus on, I don't think I solved it the right way, because I was, instead of just, like, trying to take a step back and say, like, what's, like, the simple way to solve this, I was just adding a ton of complexity. God, my goodness, sorry. So the next day I saw a small bug, and I remember being like, how, like, when I'm looking at the code, I'm like, I actually don't know how to effectively debug this now, because it's more complicated than I want it to be. And then when I could see how the problem was happening, I was like, oh, like, to go refactor this code, I, like, broke a lot of my practices, I guess, to get this all to work. So I'm going, oh no, like, to go fix this, I need to refactor this, but to go refactor this, I essentially have to go rewrite it. And I'm going, you know what, like, that one of the capabilities we were talking about, I'm like, I don't care enough, like, turn it off. Like, there's another workaround that's very easy and way less complicated. This was just more automatic, so I was like, screw it. So at the end of the day, ended up turning off some of the stuff that I was building, but that's okay. The reason I'm calling this out is, like, there's a couple spots in our code base that, as we're iterating very fast, we are reaching a point where we have to pause and go, look, we should stop and talk about this. Even things like naming conventions, people don't pay a lot of attention to. And I don't mean, like, specifically, like, your variable names. I mean, like, how we refer to different concepts in our domain is very important to be aligned on, because without it, it creates a ton of unnecessary complexity. And I don't think that tons of people think about this kind of thing. Oh man, there's an awkward... This guy's going so slow. I have to back into my spot, and this guy is going outrageously slow. Watch them drive past. See? I have to swing the car around though. And we're finding like when I had built some of the back end stuff originally, because I was using Brand Ghost in like a headless mode, and I called things by a certain name, just because that's the names I thought of. And when we started building the front end and trying to be more conscious about other people using it, like those names don't really work well anymore. So now we have disjoint naming, and we got to figure that out. So we're at the point where stuff is built using different names, and it's the level of complexity is just like growing and growing. So we'll probably have to pause, draw a bunch of pictures, say what are we talking about in these contexts, and just get on the same page. That way when we go to refactor code, we can take advantage of the new naming. I think personally it'll help a ton. So we're reaching that point in terms of how our code is structured. But I'm gonna go in. I'm probably gonna nap before work, I think, because I'm really beat up. I need to chug a glass of water, and then I'll make another one of these on the way to work. So I will see you soon. Take care.